So we're going to look at how you could use some of the key thinkers in socialism in the essays, and the themes of the essays either on the four core themes common through all the ideologies: human nature, the state, society and the economy, and our tensions within the ideology. And within socialism, one strand of tensions will be the means of achieving socialism, which is essentially revolutionary or evolutionary. And then you have tensions over the ends of socialism. You know, what's their approach towards capitalism? What's their approach towards private property and equality? You could possibly throw in class politics in there as well, although I'm going to leave it for this one. Okay, so the key thinkers: socialism, Marx and Engels, Rosa Luxemburg, Beatrice Webb, Crosland and Giddens, and then the other thinkers, Lenin, Bernstein and Beveridge and Keynes, to reference social democrats. Okay, so first kind of essay is probably the most straightforward one. It's to what extent have socialists disagreed on the means of achieving socialism, or is socialism a revolutionary doctrine? Well, clearly Marx and Engels would come in here, start of all, because Marx and Engels, and you can throw in Lenin and Luxemburg, all believe that a revolution was necessary to replace capitalism, which was exploitative and unreformable. And then you can go through the reasons it was that very briefly. But then there's a nice little bit of AO2 in here as well, and that there were tensions even within the revolutionary side. Marx and Engels are spontaneous. Class revolution, once conditions are ripe and the workers achieved spontaneously class consciousness, Lenin believed that this wouldn't happen and you had to have a vanguard party, and then Luxemburg rejects that and says no, that would lead to a huge divide between the leaders and the led, and she had much more faith in the working class. So even within the revolutionary side there were tensions, but they all agreed that a revolution was necessary. However, they were opposed by the evolutionaries and Bernstein, the other thinker, but Beatrice Webb is the key one here, who argued for a parliamentary or constitutional route to socialism on the back of the extension of the franchise and political action and political education, etc. And then the parliamentary evolutionary route is really adopted by all subsequent social democrats or revisionist socialists, so that the revolutionary road in fact reached a dead end, and all socialists are now evolutionary. But obviously the key change was with the Webbs and the inevitability of gradualism in the Fabian society and so forth. Nice essay, pretty straightforward. Then you're on to slightly more nebulous ones, and if you look at human nature, not much meat in this. You can say all socialists believe in nurture, not nature, that we can be improved if we're placed in the right social conditions, whereas under capitalism, and then you can throw in Marx and Engels here, instead of being our natural, fraternal, cooperative, gregarious selves, our natures are being corrupted, and once capitalism is got rid of and we move towards a communist society, we return to our original nature. Luxemburg broadly believed in the similar corrupting nature of capitalism, but she said that even under capitalism, you could still see the essence of humans in the solidarity and working class communities. Crosland again was broadly in agreement, but there was no need to abolish capitalism, and also moved away from the complete fraternal and cooperative aspect, and did suggest that we needed degrees of incentive or competition or some kind of unequal reward. So in a way he rejects when we come to this idea of absolute equality. And Giddens and neo-revisionists then take a more individualistic liberal stance. That would be human nature. The state, well, Marx and Engels, Luxemburg believed that the state as currently constituted was a bourgeois state and should be replaced by a worker state, and obviously Marx and Engels felt that eventually the state would wither away. Webb, on the other hand, the evolutionaries, they began to see the state in a more positive light, that rather than simply being a bourgeois state, it was now a neutral institution which could be used to effect a gradual transition to socialism. And Webb argued that the state could be run by rational, enlightened, civic-minded people, a bit like herself really, to help this slow, gradual transition to socialism. And this positive view of the state, again, is picked up again by revisionists, and you get this kind of statism that socialism adopts, and they all wish to use the power of the state, to create a fairer society. And you'll hear this echoed in the American politics, and big government idea. They're very statist, although neo-revisionists such as Giddens saw a different role for the state. It wasn't so much about creating a fairer society as facilitating citizens with the skills to participate in this new globalized world. So the state was I think we called it a competition state, but it's more a facilitator to allow people to participate. Again, much more towards a kind of liberal view of providing equality of opportunity for people. Society, for Marxist society, was merely a reflection of the modes of production, and capitalist society was sickly exploitative, and it was defined by class interests and class conflict, which will be replaced after the revolution by a communist society where you have the absence of classes and therefore absence of class conflict, common ownership, and so on. Webb, was also a fundamentalist socialist and disliked a capitalist society, but from a kind of less aggressive viewpoint from other fundamentalists. I mean, she felt that capitalist society was just too volatile. She despaired of capitalism and sought to replace that system with a rationally planned society. I mean, it links back into human nature, where rational, civic-minded officials would plan society and would have a much more fairer society. Crossland, again, probably in contrast to Marx and Engels, as you put in an essay, Crossland rejected the kind of binary division that the fundamentalists had, that society was divided into two competing classes, the bourgeois and the proletariat. And he said that society, as capitalism had developed, had become much more fragmented, and you had the emergence of new social groupings such as managerial class and a group of technocrats, and socialism had to adapt to this reality. Giddens, in his turn, kind of similar to the approach Crossland took, argued that society had evolved even further, and you had to accept the changes in society that the new right and neoliberalism had brought about, with the broad acceptance of the free market economy, and therefore within society, link it back to the role of the state, society should be one in which there was equality of opportunity, in which there was social inclusion, where everybody had an opportunity to participate in this society. And really, he's arguing for a kind of liberal, meritocratic society. The economy, again, the divisions are fairly clear. Capitalist economy, I think this was the essay last summer as well, but it was corrupt and inefficient and doomed to destruction, and you can say why Marx and Engels believed it was inevitable. Webb disliked capitalism as well, but as we've seen from a slightly different viewpoint, that it was too volatile and it should be replaced with a rationally planned economy. And she looked at the Soviet Union. She thought this is how we should run our economy, run by civic-minded experts. Crossland thought, again, you could have a mixed economy. You could still harness, tame, humanize capitalist economy to provide the funds, to provide taxes, to work towards a fairer society. And Giddens, again, kind of adopts the Crossland approach, but they say there's no sense of managing the capitalist economy. You deregulate and you privatize, and this kind of turbocharged capitalism will generate big tax revenues, which the state will then invest in the intellectual and economic infrastructure to allow people to have equality of opportunity. And this broadly happened for a few years under New Labour, the big investment in schools and fresh starts and minimum wage and so forth. but there was no sense of taming or humanising capital, so I let it rip, and then we just take the tax receipts from it and use it to share a better society. I mean, Bernstein, again, thought that socialism could live alongside a capitalist society as well. Keynes with his managed economy, which people like Crossland adapted as well. Common ownership of private property, again, the fundamentalists, and you'd include Beatrice Webb in this. They saw private property as unfair, unjust, exploitative, and should be replaced by a system of common ownership, albeit by different means. I mean, Beatrice Webb, the Webbs wrote Defence Clause 4 in the Labour Party, but obviously they took a much more gradual approach than the other ones, whereas Crossland, again, you didn't have to nationalise, take every corner shop into common ownership. You could have a mixed economy, and they nationalised the commanding heights of the economy, and they thought they were the commanding heights in the late 40s. And then you get onto the neo-revisionists, and they have a preference for private property. I mean, there's no attempt whatsoever to roll back any of the privatisations of, let's say, for example, the Thatcher governments. And I think that very technocratic phrase he used, to look for a synergy between the public and the private sector, and left us with these terrible public-private partnership initiatives that we currently have at the moment. But again, you go from abolition of private property to full common ownership. The fundamentalists, kind of a mixed bag with Crossland, and then a preference for private property there. And finally, equality. The fundamentalists would look towards a degree of absolute equality, because absolute equality would ensure a fairer society, a more stable society, where everybody had their basic needs met. Crossland, revisionists, moved away from this, recognising that individuals needed some incentive, to stimulate individual initiatives, so they moved towards a degree of relative equality rather than absolute equality. In other words, narrowing the gap between those who had and had not, but still maintaining enough of the gap to maintain incentives. And the neo-revisionists move away from that as well, towards essentially equality of opportunity through other aspects that we mentioned, the competition state and facilitating the infrastructure to allow individuals to participate in the new globalised economy. So they're key thinkers in socialism, and they're the other thinkers, which I didn't mention that much, but Lenin, really, just to mention him in the revolutionary aspect. Bernstein is very much the template for helping the Webbs come up with this idea of evolutionary socialism. And Keynes and Beveridge, you would mention when you're talking about the change in revisionist socialism and the move towards social democracy, where they had this redefinition of socialism as achieving a fairer society or social justice, and the kind of steal the modern liberal approach to a managed economy and the welfare state. And the neo-revisionists, really, you can argue that they moved so far away that they were almost indistinguishable from modern liberals, although there was still this retained sense of emphasis on improved public services and creating a more fair, more equal society, but through equality of opportunity.